despite a slight dip in the price of petrol, I think it's about 12 cents or so, ever-rising fuel costs are hitting South Africans hard in the pocket. And, of course, we've got a temporary reprieve of a cut in the fuel levy. That was, what, 150? It's going to come to an end at the end of this month of May. How will consumers be affected? Well, for more on this, we're joined by the Energy Department's Fuel and Pricing Director, Robert Maake. Mr. Maake, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Of course, we are all pleased and relieved as motorists and generally anybody in the world of transport when Finance Minister eNCA said a broad number of interventions would also be considered once the 2-month period lapses, including, of course, a review of the basic fuel price. I don't know if we are there yet.
Good afternoon, Braden and the viewers. It's indeed true that the fuel price, at least petrol, will be reducing by about 12% in Gauteng. However, Braden, we need to emphasize that the different zones, the decrease will be much higher based on the transport cost that was adjusted as well. The reason for that is because the road transport cost, we have seen that it has dropped. Based on the schedule that we got from the Road Freight Association. In terms of what will be implemented at the end of the month, I would say Braden will wait for the announcement by the department. We are working behind the scenes, yes.
Okay, but the diesel price went up. I just wonder, by nearly around about 90-odd cents, why the discrepancy between petrol and diesel? What contributed to the difference?
Yeah, the main reason for that, Braden, is the supply-demand of diesel in the international market. We know that the sanctions against diesel, heavy fuel, and we call them middle distillates in the international market. Now, there's now that shortage in the market because Russia cannot supply, and therefore the market is reacting to that shortage. We are expecting the market to correct itself over a period of time. It takes 2 to 3 months for that to happen, depending on other suppliers taking over that space. But it's mainly because of the supply and demand in the international market of diesel. Okay,
back to that short-term relief of reduction or suspension of the fuel levy by 150 over the last 2 months, including now, until the end of this now. It won't go on beyond that unless something else gives. Hello, Mr. Maake,
are you there? The got from the two ministers, Minister of Finance and Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. Yes, I can hear you, Braden.
Okay, cool. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, I'm saying based on the directive we got from our two ministers, Minister of Finance and Energy, the relief was only for 2 months. So at the end of this month, when you adjust prices for next month, that 150 is coming back into the price structures.
So come the beginning of June, we could or should expect or anticipate fuel price hikes, both on petrol and diesel. I know you've got global factors, as you've mentioned, but just on the local front, that 150 is going to be factored back in.
You're quite correct. You're quite correct, Braden. It will be coming back into the price structures of diesel and petrol.
When do you, I mean, you are the director there for fuel and pricing, and I'm sure you said things are done in consultation both with Treasury and with the Department of Energy. But I mean, besides all these other factors, when you look into the horizon, do you see months when things will become a little bit easier and the price could relax a little bit? Or is that Russia-Ukraine war still looming large globally? And of course, the volatility of our currency?
Yeah, all those factors you're mentioning, Braden, are very critical in determining our price adjustments. Necessarily do any projections. We've just seen now that the rand is going the opposite direction against the dollar. So it's difficult to predict what will happen even tomorrow. So we rely very much on the actual data rather than the predictions. It's difficult to even promise the viewers that there'll be the month that I see the price going down, because we just have to wait until the end of the month so that we can assess the performance of the rand against the dollar and what happened in the international markets.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess it's an up and down situation, but currently things are very tough. Just back on the review of the basic fuel price, the Minister of Treasury, Finance, that's it, Enoch Gondugwana, and the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Gwede Mantashe, are the ones who are leading this review from what you've said. By when do you think we could expect in the country a proposal of sorts of what will be the best way forward? Because the calls, for example, for the scrapping of the fuel levy or a new method have been growing and growing for some time.
Yeah, but then we don't need to confuse the two different things. The BFP is only the import part of the fuel prices until it lands in South Africa. So when you talk of the BFP, you can't talk of the fuel levy and the road extent fund because those are internal factors. But what I can tell you about the basic fuel price review itself is that we have done some work on it. What needs to happen now is the final consultation between the department and be able to implement the recommendation after that. And
Mr.
the levy and the road extent.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Maake. Sorry to cut in. The line is not playing ball with us. It keeps on cutting. That's a very important answer that I would like you to repeat so that our viewers can hear it clearly. You got cut there a little bit.
I was saying the basic fuel price, Braden, is about the import of a petroleum product until it lands in South Africa. So it has nothing to do with the fuel levy and the road extent fund. What I was saying to you is that we have done some work on the BFP review internally. All that is remaining now is final consultation between the department and petroleum industry stakeholders before implementation of the recommendations.
Is it a hopeful situation?
Well, based on the recommendation, we could see the BFP itself dropping by some cents per litre. But remember, that would be just a once-off drop, and then the fluctuations of the rand and the crude oil price will still play a bigger role in our prices.
And then the internal factors will then have to rely on other consultations.
Yes, the internal factors, probably, I'm not sure if there's any discussion to relook at the fuel levies, but in terms of the road extent fund, I know that there are some reforms that are taking place led by the Minister of Transport. So as soon as those outcomes are known, I'm sure they'll announce to the media.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience and your time and explanations. Robert Maake, Fuel and Pricing Director at the Department of Energy and Mineral Resources. I just try to understand some of what you were saying. There is some movement in trying to get a reduction in the basic fuel price. That's the price of fuel before it lands. And then, of course, there's internal factors like your road accident fund, like the fuel levy. There are a number of consultations. There's Treasury involved, there's the Ministry of Transport involved, and all sorts. So we have to wait, but it looks like there will be some recommendation soon to review the fuel price and in this totality in South Africa. Hopefully it will be coming down, but we'll have to wait and see whenever government is then ready to communicate, according to Mr. Maake.